Hey everyone, Reaper here again with another video. This time it is Underrated, Undervalued Comics Part 9. Once again, we have another stack of books that I think are either underrated, undervalued, both, mix of one or the other, whatever. So let's get started. I don't know if this one's been getting a whole lot of attention. I think it's been getting up on the radar, with TV series coming out and all on Disney Plus and talk of this and talk of that. I think that's, so it's been getting a little more attention. But anyway, I think this is still a book that you can get fairly cheap. And it is Ultimate Fantastic Four number 21. I believe this is the first appearance of the Marvel Zombies. So I think this is still a pretty cool book to get, and one that's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. It should. I don't even know if I put this in an affordables video. Probably should be, or should have been, if I didn't already. But a little underrated. People talk about the Marvel Zombies, but I don't think maybe it's a little undervalued too. So it's definitely worth taking a look at. Here's one I think that's a little underrated. We have Alpha Flight 33. This is the first appearance of Lady Deathstrike. Now, Lady Deathstrike is a big villain of sorts to Wolverine. I don't think she's a big villain in the scheme of things, but and I don't think it gets that much attention. People notice it, but I don't think people notice it as much as other major X-Men villains like Sabretooth and Mr. Sinister and Apocalypse. Although some of those books may not be as expensive as others, but people tend to notice them more than something like this. And with the MCU, now that the X-Men are in the MCU finally, who knows how they're going to handle Wolverine and origin stories. So you might see a Lady Deathstrike. So that might be interesting to see down the line. Here's another one I think was hot for a little while, but it kind of cooled off. The character, first appearance of Red Wolf was his Avengers number 80. Yeah. Another character that I think sometimes, they're trying to push a lot of different characters today. You have like Kamala Khan, you have Miles Morales, who have been very successful and have captured audiences quite successfully. So I don't know. It's still pretty cool. I think it's still pretty affordable, Still probably a little undervalued. Here's another one that I think is a little underrated. We have Amazing Spider-Man 51. This is the first appearance of Joe Robbie Robertson. I forget what his title is at the Bugle. I think he's the managing editor, whereas J. Jonah Jameson is the editor. I could be wrong. But anyway, he's the one that's more sympathetic to Peter. He's more sympathetic to Spider-Man, where JJJ obviously doesn't like Spider-Man and always gives Peter a hard time. It's also, though, it's the second appearance of the Kingpin, and this is the first cover appearance of the Kingpin. So I don't think this gets as much attention as it probably should, because it's a pretty cool cover. I don't like John Romita that much, or John Romita at all. Nothing personal. I'm just not a big fan of his artwork. But this one's a pretty cool one. Pretty cool. I did like the way he would draw the Kingpin. And this is the first time the Kingpin's on the cover. But I first saw this cover on the Marvel Masterpieces cards, and that's how I became familiar with this. So I think it's definitely a little bit of underrated book. If Amazing Spider-Man 50 is a little out of your range, I think that one's been heating up. For some reason, I don't know why. I think people are specking that the Kingpin's going to eventually be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Probably. I would think so. I mean, that's a pretty big character. No pun intended. But a pretty major character when it comes to characters like Spider-Man and Daredevil and other things. Okay, we have a couple more Spideys here. Here we have Amazing Spider-Man 59. First cover appearance, like we had a first cover appearance of the Kingpin. Now we have the first cover appearance of Mary Jane. I love this cover very much. And look at Mary Jane. This is so 1960s, the way she's dressed with the go-go boots and that dress. I don't even know what material that dress is made out of. But while she's dancing in front of everybody, Spider-Man is beating up somebody in the background. So definitely a cool cover. Again, I think it's a known cover to a lot of Spider-Man fans, but again, I don't think it gets as much attention as some other books of that era. And, again, you could argue, rightfully so, should that book get as much attention as Amazing Spider-Man 50? No, of course not. but it's because the fact it doesn't, and it's such a cool cover, I think it's, a little underrated. And speaking of Mary Jane, here we have Amazing Spider-Man 43, her first full appearance. Mary Jane has made so many first appearances in drips and drabs over the years until she showed up, you saw her face in the issue before this in number 42, and then this one you see her throughout the whole issue. Pretty cool cover, not bad for a Ramita cover, not bad. But yeah, Mary Jane, you see her front and center in this whole book, and I think sometimes this one's forgotten about. I think the one that a lot of people go for is 42. It's the first time you see her body, but I guess that could be considered a cameo. If we're going to consider Incredible Hulk 180 the first cameo appearance of Wolverine, I would say, Amazing Spider-Man 42 is the first cameo appearance of Mary Jane. It's even... You see a lot more Wolverine than you do Mary Jane in 180 compared to the one before this one. So just to spark that little, spark that fire between the debate of 180 and 181. I couldn't care less which one is considered the first appearance. I have both. Here's another one that I think is a little underrated. This, pretty interesting character in the Sentry. There are a couple of variants of this cover. Pretty cool variants too, and I'm not a variant collector, as you know. But there's some variants of this book, Sentry number 1, that I would consider getting. And they're a little pricey, a little more than I want to spend on them, but I always keep my eye out on them. But anyway, this is the standard release of it, Sentry number 1, the first appearance of the Sentry. I think this is a pretty cool character. I think that he would fit very well in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I really do. Or at least on a Disney series. Maybe he's not ready for the big screen, but I think he's definitely ready for the screen, small screen maybe. And the last one, this is this is not a cheap book, but I think it's a book that is overshadowed by another book, and that's why I have it in a video like this. And here we have Batman 139. This is the first appearance of the original Batgirl. Now, why? This is, could be a pretty pricey book, right? I mean, it's not super pricey, but it can cost you a decent amount. So why is this in this video? Why do you say this one's a little, I wouldn't say it's undervalued, but maybe a little underrated? Why would you say it's underrated? Because I think when people think of Batgirl, they think of Barbara Gordon. And that one, Barbara Gordon, is the most famous, more popular Batgirl, I think. But this was the first one. She is, I think, the niece of Batwoman. What's Batwoman's name again? I don't remember her name. Sorry. But she was tied to Batwoman. But I do think that this one is forgotten. When Barbara Gordon came out and all the stuff that was done with Barbara Gordon over the years, this one tends to go under the radar. People forget about it. It could be pricey, okay? Of course, depending on what grade you want to get it. So it's not necessarily undervalued, but maybe a little underrated. Well, that's Underrated 9. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll probably have an Underrated 10. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and stay tuned. Take care, everyone.